What's up, everybody? Welcome to a new segment called Keys to the Offseason. We're going to go through all the NFL teams and we're going to let you know what moves they need to make in the offseason. Now, let's start with the Patriots. Now, last offseason, Bill Belichick made a huge splash and it paid off. His Patriots team went to the playoffs. Mac Jones drafted him at quarterback. He's your franchise quarterback moving forward. He gave him some pieces. Kendrick Bourne had 800 yards receiving. Hunter Henry had 600 yards receiving. And you got Matthew Judon, who had 12.5 sacks. One of the best free agency pickups last free agency. But you need to retain some guys. Juwan Bentley, 108 tackles, you need to bring him back. Adrian Phillips is a guy that you can keep moving forward with him alongside Kyle Duggar. Adrian Phillips had 87 tackles. I think he is a good piece for this defense. He's a veteran too. You need to bring back J.C. Jackson, whatever you got to do. He's one of the best corners in the NFL, leads the NFL in interceptions almost every year. Trayvon Diggs had it this year, but he's very consistent. You let Stephon Gilmore go to the Panthers via trade, so you need to retain J.C. Jackson. You need to keep this offensive line going forward because Mac Jones plays a lot better with that running game, keep him going. And offensively, Damian Harris benefits from it too. Ted Karras, I think I pronounced his name right. And then Trenton Brown, you need to retain those guys. And Jacoby Myers is another guy. He's not a number one receiver, but he's a great number two. He's very consistent, very reliable. And one of their weak suits this year was the receiver position. They paired it up very well in free agency, but they're still missing that number one guy. I think guys out this offseason, you can pick up Calvin Ridley. He's the guy that wants to get traded from Atlanta. That's a guy you need to watch for. OBJ, you look at him, how he's playing with the Rams, very different from the Browns. That's the guy they need to look at. Allen Robinson, his Bears season this year was very disappointing, but you put him with Bill Belichick in a great system. He's very consistent and very reliable. In his first two seasons with the Chicago Bears, he put up some really good numbers. I like him as a guy. Chris Godwin, we saw what he's been doing with the Bucs and Tom Brady. He's a number one receiver you can have for the Patriots. And your goal is to have Mac Jones have as much as possible receiver position. You got two great tight ends, Smith and Henry. Offensive line is one of the best in the NFL. Defensively, you got a great defense. You keep that defense going. Because Mac Jones is not going to be a Josh Allen. He's not going to be a Patrick Mahomes. He's not going to be Lamar Jackson. He's not going to be any of those top guys. But if you can get him to do what he does best and continue to do it like they did this season, until that's the playoffs, of course. But if you can keep that going, I think that's what the Patriots need to do. And for the draft, they can have, for their 21st pick, I think look at names like David Bell at receiver from Purdue, Jameson Williams, a guy who tore his ACL, but he's going to slide in the draft, who has huge upside. Once he gets healthy, he has number one receiver potential. But those guys you need to retain. I think Bill Belichick has been doing a great job, I think, making a splash this year, maybe putting in some money with the receiver position, get defensive line, some vets in this coming up, maybe Chandler Jones, you could bring him back to New England, pair him with Matthew Judon, that pass rush will be that much better. Akeem Hicks is another guy they can pick up, but maybe sign to a cheaper deal. I know he's going to leave the Bears for more money, but you put him in a winning culture. That's a presence that they're missing at the front end at the D-line. They have a young rookie D-lineman from Alabama Christian Barmore, who's really good. Lawrence Guy, those kind of guys. But you put a dominant defensive line, interior D lineman in there. And I like what they've done. James White and Devin McCourty are also two guys they can bring back, but to low deals. James White, he's a New England guy. And that's what Bill Belichick does very well with running backs out of the backfield. Him, Brandon Bolden, those kind of guys, I think you need to keep them around. You got Ramondre Stevenson, blew up. Him and Damian Harris, those two guys, you need two running backs to be successful. And they, lucky enough, when healthy, they have four running backs that can be successful. Brandon Bolden had a good year this year. I think you retain him. I like what Bill Belichick has in place. Going forward, you had a dominant interior guy like Chandler Jones, Akeem Hicks, one of those guys. You bring back your defensive pieces, bring back J.C. Jackson, Adrian Phillips, Juwan Bentley. That's your core guy for middle linebacker. Bring back those guys. You tie up the offensive line, and this Patriots team is deadly. You bring in a number one receiver. Doesn't matter who. Like I mentioned, some guys, OBJ, those kind of guys. You draft a young receiver with your 21st pick, or a defensive player stud. Jordan Davis might slide, those kind of guys. And this Patriots team is going to be that much more deadlier. Bill Belichick, I always have faith in him. I'm excited to see what they do going forward. As always, peace.